The protagonist of the story is called Hao Hao. He sees himself as a straight shooter and a no-nonsense kind of person, but it seems he's found himself in the wrong genre, as he's wearing women's clothes, although he sees himself as a manly man. He wonders if he's dreaming. In his former life, he was heading back home from work after working overtime at the office in Shanghai. He was exhausted on his way back home when suddenly, he saw something strange in the sky. It was a giant red moon. He wondered what was happening, but before he knew it, he woke up as this young, pretty boy with all his memories intact. Suddenly, his father entered his room and told him to get up, as his father had been informed that Hao Hao and Long Long had made some sort of appointment to go shopping today. His father planned to go out to get some groceries and informed him that they would be having dinner with their aunt. He also scolded him, saying that as a boy, Hao Hao needed to take better care of himself, suggesting that he learn how to put on some makeup from his friends, as he was sure they could teach him. His father then left, leaving Hao Hao flabbergasted, wondering where he was and who he was. What was his father talking about? And the more surprising thing, do men even need makeup? Suddenly, his phone began ringing. When he answered it, a familiar voice told him to open the door. He recognized it as Brother Long, the guy who came to collect money. He was strong, muscular, and went to the gym with Hao Hao after work. He was also the chattest guy Hao Hao had ever met. He told his friend to wait a moment as he quickly changed. Suddenly, a pretty, blonde-haired boy with green eyes entered and questioned how Hao Hao could let a handsome guy like him wait so long. What if a girl with bad intentions was out there? He asked. Upon seeing his so-called manly friend, Hao Hao stared at him for a moment before attempting to call for Brother Long. But the guy told him he was right there. At that moment, Hao Hao's father commented that Long Long had arrived. His father glanced at Hao Hao's clothes and commented that he should learn from Long Long. Back in his father's day, they used to dress in bell-bottom jeans when his mother proposed to him. His father also commented that Long Long's skin was a little dry, surprising Hao Hao even more. What the hell? Do men do skincare? What kind of world have I gotten into? Hao Hao thought. His memories then began flooding in, and he realized that in this world, the roles of men and women seemed to be reversed. All the major celebrities and figures in history were reversed as well. This was a world where men took care of their children, and women held great power and did the household chores. Biologically, women were even stronger than men, so it made sense. In this world, men were naturally more beautiful than women, with very little stamina and power, hence the gender reversal. Women were favored more than men in certain dominant professions and vice versa. It was a reverse world, and Hao Hao seriously wondered, how the hell did I get into this mess? As they walked down the street, girls blushed and catcalled them. Long Long suggested they should do their nails at the mall later and get facials because he had run out of facial masks yesterday. However, Long Long's girly behavior really irritated Hao Hao, and he wanted him to shut up. Hao Hao hated this reversed world where women had become men and men had become women. It was madness, not on his watch. Nope, it's not going to happen. He spotted a tattoo parlor and decided that he would fix his friend's girly nonsense. He was going to put this world back on track to Matcha Villa. He opened the door and declared that he wanted a dragon tattoo, one of those from the Chinese mafia gang. Long Long commented that Hao Hao was acting crazy, but Hao Hao declared that he wasn't mad. The whole world is matter. Today, I am going to remind them what being a real man is. But the girls in the tattoo parlor commented that little boys couldn't get tattoos, that it was a girl's thing unless they were bad boys. Manliness, Hao Hao said as he took off his shirt. The girls immediately stared at him, blood spilling from their noses. His friend tried to hold him back as Hao Hao demanded a blue dragon on his arm and a phoenix on his right arm. He also wanted a white tiger and a black tortoise on his back. But his friend told him he was being indecent, as the girls flung money at him. When he arrived back home, he felt exhausted. Things just kept getting worse and worse. But then he saw his stepsister, Zhang Changqin. She smiled happily to see him, but Hao Hao immediately ran inside and apologized for bothering her. It seemed he had gone to the wrong door. He was surprised to realize there was another girl in the family. As if reading his mind, His father reminded him that he had told him earlier that his stepmom was coming to visit. His father wasn't sure who Hao Hao took after, maybe his previous wife. His stepmom commented that a young, handsome boy like him probably had much homework to do. Hao Hao quickly realized that his father had remarried. This was his stepmother, Yang, and his elder sister, Zhang Qiangqin. In a few more days, they would be moving to a bigger house. His stepmother praised his father for his cooking, but his stepsister stared at him with impure thoughts. Inside his room, Hao Hao felt really tired. His body was really flimsy, so he probably needed to exercise. He couldn't imagine himself getting dolled up and being attacked by a girl. He couldn't even get a tattoo. He calmly realized that he had come into a world where feminists ruled and gender roles were reversed. Maybe he needed to add more girly elements in the future. If the gender roles were reversed, he probably had to act more feminine. However, he became furious. "I'm not a chicken," he thought. He would definitely find his way back to his old world. Suddenly, a teddy bear found a safe haven on the chest of his stepsister. She pounced on him. He was nervous and commented that she must be drunk. She then used her ultimate attack, Opai. She questioned if he missed her suffocating him with her soft, squishy melons. She asked what was wrong as he looked so red. "Is he sick?" she questioned. Hao Hao almost fainted from the beautiful sight but quickly regained his composure. He told her he was okay and decided it was fine if he didn't go back to his old world. Later, in the middle of the night, a shadow appeared at his window while he was fast asleep. Someone told him to wake up, and when he opened his eyes, he saw a beautiful girl with pink hair and purple eyes smiling at him. He was frightened and questioned who she was. She commented that it seemed he didn't remember her. She got close to him and revealed that she was the entity that had brought him to this world. When she told him this, he remembered the red moon. He approached her and called her a mad lass, asking why she had even brought him to this world. What had he done to her? She introduced herself as the goddess of the blood moon. She had heard his pathetic prayers, as he always complained about being a virgin in his old world. But in this world, there were so many girls who liked him. He retorted that there wasn't a single normal girl in this world, and he wanted to go back home. She smirked and called him an ungrateful little human. She told him he could go back, but he would need to complete a task. Back in the old world, he was always ranting about trying to become a real man. He said things like girls should act cute, real men should drive Gundams, or that a real man should lift weights. He even said a real man should be able to pop a bottle cap with his bare hands. If he could become a real man in this fantasy world, he might have an opportunity to find his way back. But until then, if he was unable to do so, he would have to assimilate into this world. In other words, he would be stuck here for the rest of his life. She asked, "Is that really so bad?" She hoped he would have a great time in this new world and slowly began to vanish. Hao Hao tried to stop her, begging her not to leave yet. Unfortunately for him, she hadn't told him how to become a real man. The next morning, he thought everything had been a dream, but upon seeing the sash, he realized it wasn't. There was one thing he knew for sure. He looked way too pretty for a guy. Regardless, he needed to learn more about this world, as his memories still had gaps. Later, he read some newspapers and wondered what the hell he was reading. The headline stated that a 21-year-old male college student had been sold into a county to marry a rich cougar. The worst part? This wasn't even considered the bad part. In this world, they even did research to check if a guy was still a virgin. Scientifically, the males in this world were just too feminine, physiology resembling women from his previous world, including problems like male menstruation. It was horrible. The horror. This world was a nightmare to him. Was there no other way for him to go back? But he knows this is not necessarily true. If you put aside what the blood moon goddess said, he could technically go back if he could understand the phenomenon from that night and what triggered it. He doesn't know much about science, but he could probably pay someone to study it. Unfortunately, he is a broke high school student and doesn't know anyone. He decided to put that theory on the back burner. When he exits his room, he sees a beautiful sight. His stepsister, who comments that he's awake. She is wearing some beautiful nightgown. She winks and tells him that she made him some breakfast and asks if he would like some. He blushes and responds that breakfast sounds cool. he realizes that the Blood Moon Goddess had a point. If all the girls in this world are like his elder stepsister. Later, Hao Hao fixes his clothes and stares into the mirror. He realizes that his face is very handsome. However, it's still too feminine for his liking. Today is the day he goes to school for the first time since arriving in this world. The thought of going back to school gives him mixed feelings. Upon entering the dining room, his sister informs him that breakfast is ready. Suddenly, his stepmom slaps his dad on the rear, which really gives him mixed feelings about everything. He leaves for school and tells everyone goodbye. Long Long informs him about the lipstick he bought. It's the latest style this year. However, Hao Hao keeps his distance and tells Long Long to restrain himself in public. Long Long comments that Hao Hao has changed, as they used to be much more comfortable with each other. Hao Hao rebukes Long Long's behavior and tells him he doesn't know about him, but his concept of being a real man is different now. Being a total Chad, his view of a real man, he comments. Long Long is flabbergasted and comments that if Hao Hao wants to be a macho man, that's not good. Being that kind of person will make it hard for him to get married. Suddenly, Long Long notices they are being watched by someone creepy. Hao Hao inquires why someone would want to watch two men, but Long Long points with his gaze. A girl hides behind a pillar, commenting that they are really pretty. Hao Hao comments that he's really afraid of a girl. How can two big men be scared of some girl like her? He's honest and says that if she's come here to hurt him, he'll smack her all the same. He's all about gender equality. But Long Long questions if Hao Hao is still asleep and wonders what nonsense he's talking about. He says Hao Hao can't even lift a single brick. This lights a fire in Hao Hao, and he declares that he'll show Long Long who's weak. He used to lift weights at the gym every night and was part of the MMA club. Long Long tells him to stop dreaming and suggests they take another route. Long Long quickly drags Hao Hao away. When they finally stop running, Long Long is sweaty and mutters that it will take more time to put his makeup back on. Hao Hao ponders why they even ran so fast and notices how quickly he was panting after just a few sprints. His body is truly weak. However, he notices that they've arrived at his new school. Obviously, he can't apply the common knowledge of his old world here, as girls are definitely stronger than boys. It's crazy to think how drastically the gender roles have changed. Not to mention, his current family is super wealthy, which allows him to attend a private elite school like this. Inside one of the classes, a guy requests that a girl open a bottle for him. So, Hao Hao snatches the bottle away and tells her that he will do it. He refuses to believe that he can't even open a bottle of water. As he tries to open it, he quickly realizes that it's very tight. He uses more strength and questions if this is normal. Suddenly, he activates full power, full strength, ultra instinct. The girl and the boy look at him in shock. Despite giving it his all, his hands are bruised and red, and he hands the bottle to the girl, admitting defeat. She opens it with ease. Hao Hao feels humiliated and weak, wondering what kind of man he is if he can't even open a bottle of water. But before he can reflect too much, the boy is swarmed by a flock of women, inquiring about his well-being. Hao Hao is regarded as the male idol of the school. Long Long reassures the ladies that Hao Hao is fine, just feeling under the weather. However, Hao Hao is emotionally shattered. He realizes he really needs to exercise. While walking down the hallway, Long Long approaches him and suggests they head to the bathroom together. Even if they are in a reverse world, Hao Hao's sensibilities remain unchanged, so he'll just stay ignorant and slip away. The girls comment on how beautiful Hao Hao is, his white, tender, clean skin so smooth and silky, and his perky buttocks that they just want to squeeze. He thinks to himself that he really has to do something about his body. He's still too weak. He needs to find a place to exercise so he can get stronger. He then looks at his phone and sees a beginner's class for Muay Thai training. Seems legit, so he decides to check it out. But muscle training alone won't help him become a real man mentally. He needs to prepare himself for that as well. Becoming a real man is a state of mind. Suddenly, Hao Hao is approached by a girl who asks what he's reading. She is Huang Yuanyuan, who sits next to him in class. She startles him and he asks if she's some kind of ninja. She explains that she called him, but he was so engrossed in reading an article on his phone that he didn't hear her. She inches closer to him and asks if he's doing something wrong, wondering if it's a message to a girl he likes. He blushes and explains that he is a traditional man and that men and women shouldn't get too close in public. However, she holds his hand and comments on how soft and beautiful it is. He quickly realizes that girls in this world are daring. He looks away and comments that a girl shouldn't act that way. She notices that Hao Hao is acting differently today compared to how he used to. He brushes it off, telling her she's overthinking. However, he does not remember how his old self used to act. She looks at him, thinking deeply, but Hao Hao simply stares into space nervously. She concludes that maybe he hasn't been sleeping well lately and suggests that he get a good massage from her, as her family has an ancestral method for it. He wonders why this girl is so pervy and why she's so strong. He can't even push her away. He points out that the teacher is here, so she should stop fooling around. The teacher, Miss Madeline, their English teacher and the class representative, tells them to hurry back to their seats as class is about to begin. Strangely, upon reading the book, Hao Hao already understands everything in it, even though he had graduated from high school years ago. In his original world, he was a delinquent, but his alternative self had no trouble remembering the material. It seems an effect of coming to this alternate universe is that he's a star student. He hopes the teacher will ask him a question because he feels confident in his answers. However, when she calls his name, she asks if he's all right. She wonders if the weather is too hot or if his butt hurts, and suggests he visit the infirmary. Hao Hao is embarrassed, and all eyes are on him. He quickly says he's fine and that there's nothing wrong with him. The ladies gossip, saying that something's wrong with Hao Hao. He's still the same pretty boy, but something's off with his head. Rumors are spreading that he fell down some stairs a few days ago, which might explain why he seems less smart. Hao Hao decides to just do whatever he wants from now on and let them regret it later. Later, Long Long worries about him because he didn't get enough sleep last night. It's obvious Hao Hao is mentally drained. Beautiful women approach him, telling him about their accomplishments, and guys comment on his butt. He can't say anything about it except smile and take it. It's so frustrating. Getting called out by girls is one thing, but being admired for his booty is another. This school is so annoying to him. He wants to go back to his old world. Not long after, Hao Hao is approached by a beautiful girl who confesses that she's liked him since they first met and asks him to go out with her. He can't get used to girls confessing to him, but he apologizes, saying he's not ready to tie himself to a girl just yet. His mental health is deteriorating, so he's just going to leave. This is the 20th confession he's received this month. Long Long is jealous of how popular Hao Hao is, but Hao Hao tells him to just drop it and head to the cafeteria because he's hungry. When they arrive at the cafeteria, Hao Hao notices some guys eating almost nothing at all. He questions Long Long if guys usually eat like this or if it's just them. Long Long looks at him with a worried expression and explains that some men have to keep a strict diet and watch their weight and waistlines. Long Long orders only salad, fried vegetables, and a small portion of fries. Hao Hao comments that Long Long will faint at that rate. But Long Long explains that he's been eating the same thing for the past week to lose weight. Hao Hao wonders if it's because of the reverse gender biology that men in this world need fewer calories than women. Either way, he needs to bulk up a lot if he wants to complete his first step. So, he approaches the lady at the counter and asks for all the meat they have. Braised pork, ribeye steak, and large portions of everything, along with some good Asian rice. Long Long questions if Hao Hao has gone mad, saying he'll gain so much weight. But Hao Hao comments that real men should eat more because they have to exercise after all. Some jealous boys gossip about what Hao Hao is trying to accomplish by eating so excessively. One of them comments that Hao Hao's figure is great because his metabolism is like a cheat code. However, others think he's just showing off because he's so popular and believes he can do whatever he wants. Suddenly, one of the boys comments that they should go over and say hello, or else it will be very rude. Brother Long inquires why he's eating like this as people might think it's rude and he'll get into trouble. Suddenly, a red-haired guy comments that it's a coincidence seeing him in the cafeteria. His name is Lufeng. He comments that Hao Hao looks like some desperate foreign workers working at those hard labor jobs, but Hao Hao merely inquiries who he is. This angers him, and he questions if he is joking since they went to study together. He criticizes if Hao Hao simply forgot since all that fat went to his brain. Lufeng comments that boys are very popular, but they still have an image to uphold and should take care of their bodies. He asks if Hao Hao wants to be fat, but Hao Hao retorts, asking if Lufeng is blind since he's trying to eat here. He reflects that Lufeng already disrespected migrant workers, and now he's disrespecting fat people too. Hao Hao questions why someone would act like this. Is this how boys act in this world? It's weird. He comments that Lufeng is racist and fatphobic, showing all sorts of nasty behavior. Hao Hao doesn't understand why people like him look down on others so much, pointing out that his personality is trash since he can't even appreciate hardworking people or those who can't help the situation they are in. This causes Lufeng to cry, claiming that he was saying all that for Hao Hao's own good and didn't expect him to respond that way. The girls watching think that Hao Hao was being too harsh and that he didn't have to say all that because it made Lufeng cry. They are unsure how to feel now that their image of Hao Hao has collapsed. However, Lufeng's tears are just a trick to gain public sympathy. Suddenly, a heroine steps in and declares that what Hao Hao eats is his own business. She questions Lufeng, asking if boys aren't allowed to eat a lot, saying that his behavior is prejudiced and discriminatory against their own peers. The girl smirks and says that if Hao Hao needs more meat, she'll give him her share. Hao Hao won't lie. She is pretty and charming. This encounter angers Lufeng, who tries to say something but stutters. Hao Hao calmly tells him that if he has something to say, he should speak up, and if not, he should shut up and let them eat in peace. Long Long tells Hao Hao he can't be so rude and needs to think about his image as the male idol of the school. The girl, however, finds Hao Hao even more attractive for standing up like that, almost like a wild kitty. This comment further angers Lufeng, who calls Hao Hao vulgar and says he doesn't need to hang around people like him. He storms off, and his friends try to comfort him, saying the girl was probably deceived by Hao Hao appearance. Lufeng, however, insists he's not sad and that sooner or later, she'll turn around and look at him. The girl tells Hao Hao there's no need to rush, the food won't run away. As she says this, Hao Hao whispers to Long Long, asking who this girl is. Long Long is surprised and reminds him that this girl has had a crush on him for ages. She's a second-year senior from class number 4, Zhao Ying. She mentions a game she introduced to Hao Hao earlier and asks if he's tried it yet. Long Long says the game is too difficult and that boys aren't suited for such games, but Hao Hao is familiar with it. It's a 5 versus 5 mobile-style arena PvP game. Long Long recalls that Hao Hao used to say he wasn't interested in the game because it was for girls. Hao Hao never expected this game to exist in this world, but here, it's only for women. Zhao Ying corrects them, saying that some boys do play the game, just not at a competitive level, and suggests they play together. Hao Hao gets up, explaining that he's usually a support player in games and that he's heading back to class. Long Long waves goodbye and tells the girl to eat slowly. As they leave, she wonders when Hao Hao will ever accept her. Hao Hao begins to think about whether the skill level in this world's games is the same as in his previous world. He wonders if he will ever match the girls in skill here. What exactly does it mean to be a real man in this world? Suddenly, he notices a girl sitting alone by the window, looking a bit lonely. Long Long informs him that her name is Minyu, a transfer student. Hao Hao quickly realizes that Long Long has a crush on her. He comments that Minyu is pretty but doesn't talk much. Long Long dismisses the idea of talking to her, but Hao Hao insists, dragging him along. Hao Hao explains that while men in the past may have been reserved, in today's world, men need to take chances. Besides, he would feel guilty leaving a lonely transfer girl by herself. He approaches Minyu and introduces himself and his friend. She quietly introduces herself in return. Hao Hao finds her intriguing because, unlike other girls, she doesn't act strange or flustered around him. Long Long whispers that she's reading and probably doesn't want to talk to anyone. Hao Hao asks if she's reading a novel and she confirms. Long Long tries to slip away, but Hao Hao stops him, explaining that Minyu doesn't mind talking to them. She's just a little antisocial. Hao Hao smiles and asks if she wants to chat, suggesting they be friends. He proudly declares that a true Sigma male never ignores a helpless girl. He feels like this is the beginning of his quest for greatness. Suddenly, Huang Yangyang approaches, questioning if Hao Hao is bothering the transfer student. Hao Hao sees this as a perfect opportunity and pushes Huang Yangyang towards Minyu, encouraging her to make friends. Although surprised, Huang Yangyang complies. Mingyang thanks him. Hao Hao smiles and tells her not to mention it, feeling that his journey to becoming a manly man is progressing smoothly. In the next scene, Hao Hao is listening to music, revisiting his old playlist. Suddenly, his sister knocks on the door and asks if she can come in. She inquires what he's doing in his room, and he casually mentions that he's just listening to music. With a seductive smile, she approaches him, commenting on how different he is from other boys. She inches closer and listens to his music, remarking that he likes rock music. Hao Hao starts to wonder if she's coming on to him. Feeling conflicted, part of him tells him to resist temptation as a true Sigma male must, while another part argues that being an alpha means taking charge. Temptation wins momentarily as he pushes her onto the bed, hovering over her. She smiles innocently and asks if he wants a hug. But just as he's about to go further, a memory flashes in his mind. A young girl's voice declaring that he belongs to her. Shocked, he snaps back to reality, backing away. His sister, surprised, asks if he's feeling unwell. He admits he's not sure, and she suggests he get some rest. She hugs him, telling him that men aren't as strong as women and need to take care of their bodies. As he leans into her, she gives him a strange look and calls him a good boy, telling him to always listen to her. Hao Hao blushes and asks if he'd look better with short hair. She assures him that he'd look great no matter what. He starts to wonder if his sister is a little weird, but he shrugs it off. Determined to shed his beta male status, he decides it's time for a haircut. A person inquires if Hao Hao has come to get a haircut, complimenting him by saying, "He look beautiful and she'll get their best hairdresser." A woman tells him to sit and asks what hairstyle he wants. He responds that he doesn't really care as long as it's short. She can cut it however she wants, and it doesn't have to look pretty. Surprised, she says she's never heard a guy request that. Looking at her through the mirror, he questions if any style is okay. At that moment, an idea pops into her mind. She thinks that maybe he's lying and actually wants her to cut it better. She decides to make him even more handsome and attractive to the ladies, despite what he said. After finishing, she eagerly asks how he likes his new short hair, realizing that even with it cut short, he still looks even cuter. She tells him there's no need to pay. All she wants is a photo to promote their salon to future customers. But Hao Hao refuses, feeling a little guilty. She thinks it's a pity because, to her, he's a beautiful boy. She hands him her card and tells him if he ever needs a personal salon, he should just contact her. He considers that having extra encouragement is great, as he can get used to it. While the hairstyle doesn't exactly scream dominant, he guesses it's fine for now. Next, Hao Hao needs to update his wardrobe. When he opens it, all he finds are a bunch of girly clothes. Later, his father calls him for help with something, but when Hao Hao arrives, his father is shocked. His father curses, demanding to know what Hao Hao did to his hair and why he cut it so short. Hao Hao tries to calm him down, explaining that his hair was too long, bothering his eyes, and he just wanted a change. His father angrily inquires if Hao Hao is trying to upset him, asking if Hao Hao is trying to be rebellious. He questions how Hao Hao can get married with hair like this. At that moment, his stepsister arrives, asking what's going on. Hao Hao rushes into her arms, hugging her. Strangely, she grins from ear to ear and tells their stepfather to take it easy, reminding him that getting too excited isn't good for his health. The stepfather explains that Hao Hao cut his hair without saying a word, and how could he not be angry? But as she looks at Hao Hao's cute, innocent face silently asking for help, she softens. His stepsister blushes and comments that she thinks Hao Hao looks better with short hair, reminding their father that Hao Hao had told her the day before that he wanted to change his image, so he shouldn't be mad. Their father, however, insists she's spoiling him too much. Later, Hao Hao apologizes to his stepsister for being an inconvenience, never expecting their father to chase him around all day. She reassures him that it's fine and, as his older sister, she'll always take his side. She then asks him to come to her room because she has something to give him. Just the thought of entering her room excites him. Upon entering, he realizes her room is no different from a typical boy's room. She takes out a box and shows him a diamond, asking if he likes it. Hao Hao hesitates, saying it's too expensive for him, but she assures him that as long as he likes it, she'll buy anything for him. How How wonders if he just got a new sister or a sugar mama. He stares at the diamond, wondering how much it must have cost. He considers returning it, but then checks his bank account. He only has $2.03 at that moment. Long Long texts him and shows him the new novel he wrote, proudly revealing that he's already signed a contract for it. This makes How How uneasy, especially since he didn't like what he read. However, this gives How How a great idea. He can write a novel bringing stories from his Earth into this new world, and probably earn some quick cash. He gets to work but quickly realizes that in this world, he needs to change his male characters to female, or perhaps try a reverse harem. It's a guy genre, but he decides to take his chances. All he needs to do is expand the world a bit, add elements from different novels, and sprinkle them here and there. He finishes his novel and decides to call it A Real Woman in a Patriarchal World. At school, How How receives a notification that his novel has passed the submission review for a web novel and that he should contact the editor. The process was easy, and now he just wants the story to be published so he can finally earn some money from royalties. Updating the story every day might be a chore, but at least things are starting to look up for him in this new world. He feels he should celebrate, but with his current budget, he can only afford a single popsicle. While looking at the shop, he suddenly recognizes it. It triggers memories. He recalls a time when he was being bullied and a girl came to protect him. At that moment, he thought she was his savior. Her body was petite, but somehow that small frame seemed so large on that day. Amei was the daughter of Uncle Jean, who owned the grocery store next door. They had been close friends, and she would often buy him drinks. He thought she was lovely. After the bullying incident, he visited her shop many times, even helping her out. One day, he gathered the courage to confess his feelings for her, but she revealed that she liked men with muscles and thought he was too young. Naturally, he was rejected. Since that day, he had been obsessed with exercising, training his body to become muscular, thinking that one day he'd be able to protect her. But now, How How comes to the conclusion that he's in a different world, a different person. He's good-looking, a real heartthrob, so maybe if he confesses to her this time, he'll have a higher chance of success. Upon entering the store, he overhears an argument. Someone is telling Amei to stay home and never go out to work hard. She retorts, saying that all she does is physical work every day. The voice compares her to the daughter of another family, a girl 2 years younger who earns $30,000 with her own abilities and has married a responsible man. Amei comments that she can earn $30,000 just by moving bricks. How How wonders if he should come back later, but then someone appears, looking down at him. How How looks up at her, smiling, thinking that his first love hasn't changed one bit. But that thought quickly disappears as he notices that she has turned into a huge, muscular giant. With a single step, the earth vibrates and How How fell on the ground. She hovers over him smiling, but he's terrified. She questions what's wrong with a sweet smile, but How How looks at her with teary eyes. Moments later, she brings watermelon for him to eat, questions him what he wants. He tells her he's fine, but with a slight tap on his shoulder, she breaks his chair and causes him to fall on the ground. She's horrified by what she did. She tries to help, but he does a backflip somersault and lands perfectly on his legs. He gives her a thumbs up and tells her that he's fine, declaring that time is running out. So he quickly runs away, as he still has something to do and doesn't want to bother her today. She tells him to add something before leaving, but he quickly leaves at top speed. Unfortunately, the iron law of this other world does not deceive him. Even a small and gentle girl like Crush has become a King Kong. He really needs to sign up for a multi-class as soon as possible, and he has many more responsibilities that cost a lot of money. It's quite overwhelming for him. His stepsister comments that he's back, and he relaxes for a moment, realizing that she is home. But to his surprise, she is doing a workout, her stomach showing. He questions if girls in this world still practice yoga. She declares that she is tired of practicing in the gym, so she's trying out a routine that boys do to see how it goes. She holds his hand and tells him that he should also practice yoga. It's not good for a boy to be too skinny, or he might get bullied at school. In the eyes of his sister, he is a weak chicken, but he cannot tolerate this. So he takes her hand and declares that since she is so worried, she can try arm wrestling him. She smirks and tells him the loser has to promise the winner one thing. The wrestling begins, and his manly dignity is on the line. Trillions of men in previous lives have endured all kinds of hardships to survive and support their families. But now he's being treated as a delicate and cute girl. He can't fall down easily. She comments that he can persevere for a long time and that it's very nice. However, his hand hurts a lot, but he knows he must endure. Even if his body doesn't support him, he still has the rock-like willpower of a man. She tells him that if this continues, he will injure himself, so she immediately defeats him, commenting that he worked hard and tried his best. Didn't he? She questions if his hands hurt, and How comments that he's fine, admitting defeat. He asks if there is anything she wants from him. She tells him that she doesn't want anything from him but instead wants the feeling of a new pillow. He immediately thinks that he will be laying on her thighs and feels very happy. He wonders if there is such a good thing. Immediately, she lies her head on his legs. She comments that his legs are really comfortable, and when she puts her head on his lap, it feels like heaven. She questions if she can lie on him a bit longer. She can lie down casually as long as she wants. He doesn't mind. Later, he is busy with some work when he receives a call. He wonders who could be texting him on the weekend. It's his friend Yuanyu, and who informs him that she has an appointment with Yueha.